On the day of my delivery, the midwife discreetly swapped my child for her own daughter. However, I did not expose her deceit. In my previous life, I apprehended the midwife responsible for the theft on the spot and raised my daughter with utmost affection and care. Yet, on the day she ascended to the position of empress, she issued a decree demoting me to the status of a concubine, allowing her cousin to enter the household as the rightful wife. It was then that I discovered my child had been poisoned in the womb by his father, taking her last breath upon birth. Astonishingly, the daughter I had nurtured was, in truth, the offspring of my husband and his cousin. I was cast aside in the backyard, forsaken and left to succumb to illness in the frigid night. Upon reopening my eyes, I found myself once again on the day of my delivery. This time, I acquiesced to the midwife's actions. After all, it was not my child, and I could hardly be bothered to intervene. 16 years later, a tattered girl arrived at my doorstep seeking recognition. Gazing at her face, which bore a striking resemblance to my husband's, I offered a faint smile and said, "Since you have come to claim kinship, let us send your family of 3 to reunite in the underworld." As I opened my eyes once more, I found my midwife, Xiaohua, stealthily exchanging the child swaddled in cloth. After a moment's hesitation, she reluctantly removed the silver bracelet intended for her own daughter. Zhaodi, do not hold it against your mother. Following this family, you will enjoy a life of luxury and will have no need for the bracelet. Let it be a keepsake for your future brother. It was only after she had fumbled for a while that I finally stirred, feigning surprise at the child in my arms. "Oh, Xiaohua." I merely closed my eyes for a moment, and how has this little one become so dark and unattractive? Startled by my words, Xiaohua instinctively turned away to shield the child in her embrace.
"Madam, you jest."
Children grow according to their surroundings. The eldest young lady is robust and healthy, a sign of good fortune. Seeing her struggle to concoct a suitable response, I decided to cease my teasing. Indeed, Xiaohua, having borne a child herself, possessed far more experience than I. Thus, I resolved to keep her in the household so that her daughter might accompany my own child in the future. After all, a mother who has just given birth cannot truly part with her own offspring. Upon hearing such a mutually beneficial proposal, Xiaohua immediately knelt in gratitude, forgetting to cover her child's face. The fair and lovely child in her arms smiled sweetly at me, and she was none other than my daughter, Xiangxue, whom I had cherished for 18 years in my previous life. Yet, I felt no stirrings of emotion within me. What a pity, Xiangxue, in this life, you shall endure hardships alongside a peasant woman, never to ascend to the throne of empress again. As for your biological mother, Su Qingning, let her remain a mere concubine for the rest of her days. 2. I retained Xiaohua, partly to ensure that the child, Xia Ingxue, remained under my watchful eye to prevent any unforeseen circumstances, and partly because Xiaohua and her daughter were, in my previous life, the very perpetrators of my demise. In that life, I had immediately discerned Xiaohua's scheme to swap the children and had reclaimed my own. Xiaohua knelt before me, weeping as she recounted her husband's failings, his indulgence in gambling and drinking, which led him to beat her when he lost. She claimed she did not wish her child to suffer such a life and thus had erred in her judgment. Observing her battered form, I felt pity for her. As a new mother, she sought only to provide a better future for her child. Rather than condemning her, I gifted her a gold ingot to aid her return home with her daughter. Later, when Xia Ingxue ascended to a higher position, I was relegated to the status of a concubine. As I languished in the back courtyard, awaiting my fate, it was Xiaohua and her daughter who stealthily crept into the yard. Upon recognizing Xiaohua, I believed I had finally found a glimmer of hope, for I had not only spared her, but had also bestowed upon her wealth to support her daughter. Yet, what awaited me was not redemption. Upon finding me, Xiaohua wielded a whip and mercilessly struck me. "Do you see now, Zhaodi? It was she who thwarted you from becoming the young mistress of the Xia family. Otherwise, the one seated in the higher position today would have been you." Zhaodi seized my throat, delivering several vicious slaps. "Wretched woman, you obstructed our mother-daughter fortune. I have heard that the one in the higher position is not even your biological daughter. This is truly poetic justice." I fell to the ground, coughing up blood, and clutched at Xiaohua's garment, unable to suppress my bitterness. "I did not blame you back then. I even gifted you wealth, surely for the sake of that gold ingot. You should not so humiliate me. Xiaohua kicked me over, grasping my hair and slamming my head against the wall. Dare you mention that gold ingot? It was precisely because of your gold that I returned home to face the wrath of my drunken husband. He took the ingot to gamble, and when he lost, he demanded I find another. How could I procure another? He beat me all night until he was satisfied. It would have been better had you never mentioned the ingot. Just hearing it enrages me. I had obstructed their plan to swap the children, which they interpreted as seizing their opportunity. I had offered them wealth, yet they blamed me, rather than their husband, who had stolen from them. They blamed me for being well-educated, forgetting the tale of Donghua and the wolf at the critical moment. Realizing further discourse was futile, I chose to remain silent, fearing they might inflict further harm upon me. After venting their wrath, they hurriedly departed. In truth, they need not have feared. The back courtyard had been deserted for months, and I survived only by foraging for wild grasses. That night, I succumbed to my grievous wounds and perished in the frigid darkness, only to be discarded in a mass grave come spring. 3. Contemplating Xiaohua's vile husband, a scheme formed in my mind, and I casually inquired whether there were any others in her household. Xiaohua, perplexed, presumed that a noble family would exercise caution in hiring a servant and that it was customary to inquire about their background. My parents passed away when I was young, and my uncle sold me to a fellow villager as a child bride. Currently, aside from my daughter, only my husband, Hu Li, remains. It was prudent to ascertain certain details to avoid leaving any loose ends that might lead to future retribution. I recalled my cousin Su Qingning, who had entered the Dou household alongside Xia Yingxian, and I discreetly indicated to Xiaohua that her husband, Hu Li, should serve as a steward. Unaware of my ulterior motives, Xiaohua knelt in gratitude, thanking me for reuniting her family. Throughout this exchange, she hesitated several times to mention the truth regarding the child in my arms, but ultimately refrained. This was for the best, as it would prevent me from seeking revenge in the future without her knowing the reason. After sending Xiaohua away, I collapsed onto the bed and wept bitterly. The child I had carried for 10 months, whom I had longed to meet, had lost his life before ever seeing his mother's face. It was unimaginable that his biological father had taken his life. I now had no knowledge of where my child would be laid to rest. Xia Yingxian, oh, Xia Yingxian, you truly deserve to die. As I thought of my unfortunate child, I resolved to deliver a dose of poison to Xia Yingxian that very night. Su Qingning had just given birth, and Xia Yingxian was attending to her under the pretense of preparing for the upcoming imperial examinations. Although his writings were nonsensical and he had repeatedly failed, as his wife, I still often comforted him, assuring him that his talents would eventually be recognized and that I consistently brewed health tea for him, never neglecting him even during my pregnancy. Thus, when he received the bowl of health tea I had prepared, he had no suspicions and drank it without hesitation, unaware it was laced with poison. In my previous life, after giving birth to my daughter, I had taken confinement medicine for years, ultimately finding myself without progeny. At the time, I had attributed my inability to bear children to the complications I endured during childbirth, and Xia Yingxian had reassured me on numerous occasions, allowing me to finally release my burdens. Yet, when Xia Yingxian ascended to a higher status and Su Qingning was elevated to the position of primary wife, it was then that the long unfruitful Xia Yingxian managed to sire a son with Su Qingning. Upon hearing that Xia Yingxian was hosting a banquet for their son's full moon celebration, I could not help but break my own nails in frustration, cursing myself for not having seen the truth about those around me for so many years. It was then that I understood the poison Xia Yingxian had administered to me had not only caused my child's demise but had also harmed my own health, rendering me incapable of bearing children again. The harm he inflicted upon my child had also inflicted suffering upon me. Thus, this poison would serve as interest, and I would collect the remainder from him in due course. After a maid informed me that Xia Yingxian had consumed every drop of the health tea, I instructed someone to dispose of the remaining poison beneath the flowering tree in Su Qingning's courtyard, ensuring that when the truth eventually surfaced, it would lead to their mutual destruction. With that matter settled, I hastily dispatched a letter to the wife of the governor of Qingzhou, accompanied by a precious beryl coral ornament and a sum of 200,000 taels of silver.
4.
The wife of the governor of Qingzhou is the half-sister of the noble concubine in the palace, who is, in turn, the esteemed mother of the third prince, favored by many in my previous life. As the noble concubine's birthday approached, the governor's wife found herself unable to procure an appropriate gift to honor her. This was due to the governor's integrity. He could not bear to accept a single coin from the people, which resulted in a harmonious yet impoverished administration. The 200,000 taels of silver and the coral ornament I sent would alleviate the governor's wife's immediate crisis, and in return, I merely sought her to mention my name when she presented her gift to the noble concubine. Currently, the imperial harem is without a master, and since the early demise of the crown prince, it is clear to all that the throne will inevitably fall to either the second prince or the third prince. The second prince, lacking in talent yet ruthless in demeanor, harbored resentment towards the Grand Tutor for criticizing his studies. At such a tender age, he resorted to poisoning the Grand Tutor's steed, leaving the venerable statesman bedridden and ailing. In his previous life, he took advantage of the third prince's absence during a disaster relief mission to bribe a close aide to the emperor, leading to the emperor's demise. He then forged an edict to ascend the throne, coercing the noble consort to commit suicide in a tragic act of loyalty. By the time the third prince returned to the capital, the situation was already set in stone. The once lauded virtuous king was left with no choice but to take poison himself, meeting a gruesome end. I cannot ascertain how much of Xia Yingshuan's influence permeated the second prince's schemes, but I am aware that in 3 months, Xia Yingshuan would present a piece of turquoise coral to curry favor with the second prince's maternal uncle. This very coral piece secured him a modest official position, thereby establishing him as a crucial ally to the second prince. The path to seizing power is fraught with peril, and at that time, I did not endorse Xia Yingshuan's involvement in such matters. Yet, he cleverly utilized this precious coral to secure his future, silencing my objections. Considering my Dou family is among the wealthiest in Qingzhou, a mere trinket holds no significance for me. To maintain marital harmony, I reluctantly chose to refrain from mentioning it. Presently, the second prince is merely 7 years old, while the third prince has just celebrated his 6th birthday. If one were to place a bet, it is prudent to act swiftly. In hindsight, rather than using this ornament to pave a path for Xia Yingshuan, I might as well seize it to forge my own ascent. The third prince, clearly, is a promising option. When the reply from the governor's wife arrived, containing nothing but the word good on a grand sheet of paper, I realized that I had successfully navigated this course. As a month passed, on the day of the child's full moon celebration, Xia Yingshuan, after much deliberation, named the child Xia Yingxue. In the previous life, Xia Yingxue was fair and adorable, making the name quite fitting. However, the current child is dark and stout, rendering the name somewhat amusing. The true Xia Yingxue, however, bore the name Zhao Di, the daughter of Xiao He. After the confinement period, I resumed managing the family affairs. In my previous life, I devoted my efforts entirely to caring for the child, leaving the vast Dou estate in Xia Yingshuan's hands. I am unaware of how much of the family's wealth he siphoned to support the second prince or how much he funneled into Su Qingning's little treasury. This time, I absolutely cannot relinquish the fruits of my father's labor to others. Xia Yingshuan had long coveted the Dou family's riches, and upon witnessing my re-engagement with the family business, he hastily urged me to rest, asserting that it would suffice for him to manage the Dou estate. While I calculated accounts, I replied without looking up, "Husband, you err. A man should strive ceaselessly for fame and fortune through diligent study, rather than squander energy on mere commercial pursuits that might derail a splendid future." Xia Yingshuan had crafted his persona so well that, in his attempts to remain close to Su Qingning, he would often stay in the study under the pretense of studying while I was still in confinement.
Now,
as I urged him to focus on his studies and refrain from meddling in family affairs, he found himself momentarily at a loss for a counterargument. Observing his despondent retreat, a surge of murderous intent welled within me. I yearned to eliminate him immediately, yet I ultimately restrained myself, for the time was not yet ripe. After I came of age, my father suddenly fell gravely ill, and within 3 months, he passed away unexpectedly. According to family customs, without a male heir, the family's assets would revert to the clan. The Dou family's wealth was the fruit of my father's lifelong toil. How could I allow it to be handed over to others? Regrettably, this was a clan rule, beyond the scrutiny of even the authorities. In utter desperation, I sought the matchmaker to find a suitable husband to marry into our family, as only this could alleviate my current predicament. However, ambitious young men with aspirations seldom wish to become a son-in-law. Those willing to do so are often driven solely by my looks and the family's wealth. Amidst this turmoil, Xia Yingxian, dressed in simple attire and bearing a marriage contract, arrived at my doorstep, revealing that my grandfather had arranged a betrothal for me long ago. Reluctant to rush into marriage, I found myself compelled to hastily wed Xia Yingxian, as he was sincere in his intentions and had the prior engagement, and the clan was pressing for a resolution. If I were to dispose of Xia Yingxian, it was likely that the elderly and obstinate members of the clan would invoke the rules to seize my inheritance. Very well, let him linger a while longer. After all, he is merely a grasshopper in autumn. After Xiao, he took up the role of wet nurse. She devoted herself fervently to caring for Xia Yingxian. She would have gladly fed Xia Yingxian 10 times a day, while Zhao Di was left in the woodshed, crying for attention, only receiving a hasty bowl of rice porridge. Over time, the already dark and stout Xia Yingxian became even more robust, while the same-aged Zhao Di grew thin and small, resembling a little mouse. The servants in the household, unable to bear it, would remind her to tend to her own child and provide her with nourishment, but Xiao he would always retort sharply. What is Zhao Di? A lowly wretch does not deserve to share milk with young Miss Yingxian. Feeding her porridge is already a favor. Speak more, and I shall inform the lady that you disapprove of my nurturing young Miss Yingxian. Ultimately, Zhao Di was not her own child, and there was no reason to jeopardize her livelihood over another's family matters. Gradually, no one came to Zhao Di's defense. Yet, truth cannot be concealed forever. And as Xiao he predicted, children do indeed grow swiftly. Zhao Di increasingly resembled Xia Yingxian, while Xia Yingxian remained dark as coal, showing no resemblance to either Xia Yingxian or Su Qingning, resulting in much gossip that eventually reached Xia Yingshuan's ears. Noticing Xia Yingxian staring intently at the frolicking Xia Yingxian and Zhao Di, I realized I needed to take action. Otherwise, this father-daughter pair would recognize each other prematurely. One day, after Xiao he had finished attending to Xia Yingxian's meal and was about to take her leave, I feigned casualness and said, "By the way, your Zhao Di bears some resemblance to my husband. I find myself quite fond of that child. How about we find a date soon, and I shall adopt Zhao Di as my goddaughter?" Xiao he, not waiting for me to finish, fell to her knees in terror, and when I mentioned adopting Zhao Di, she continued to bow in fright. "Madam, please reconsider. My Zhao Di is of weak fortune. The fortune teller said she is destined for a light fate, unable to bear blessings. Look at her, nearly 2 years old and still so frail. If she were to be recognized by a noble lady like you, it might shorten her lifespan." Xiao he wailed for a long while, yet not a single tear fell. I grew weary of her lamentations and commanded her to rise. I merely suggested it. If you refuse, then let it be. However, that child truly resembles my husband more and more, while Xia Yingxian, I cannot discern any resemblance. Seeing me relent, Xiao he lacked the energy for further pretense, merely echoing my sentiments with flattery. "Madam, do not say such things. Children can be unattractive in their infancy, but they may grow into beauty. Who knows what Zhao Di will look like when she grows up?" I could not be bothered to engage her further, instructing her to return to her duties, but silently reflecting on how Zhao Di indeed bore some resemblance to Xia Yingxian. Observing Xiao he's somewhat hesitant gait, I understood she had absorbed my words. Indeed, that very evening, I heard a mournful wail from the back courtyard. The following day, I saw Zhao Di's face wrapped in bandages, learning that Xiao he had inadvertently burned her face with a hot iron the night before. I felt a pang of sympathy, yet marveled at Xiao he's ruthlessness. After caring for Zhao Di for so long, one would expect some affection, yet she was truly capable of such cruelty. Following that incident, Xiao he discreetly mixed some harmful substances into Zhao Di's meals, and half a month later, Zhao Di's face was permanently scarred, losing her former delicate beauty. Since I resumed control of the Dou family's affairs, Xia Yingxian no longer had the same ease in acquiring money or gifts. In my previous life, at this juncture, He would have ingratiated himself with the second prince's maternal uncle using that piece of coral, securing an official position and diligently navigating the political landscape. In this life, he indeed sought to curry favor with the second prince's uncle, but regrettably, the quality of his gifts was lacking, resulting in no more than a nominal position. And he did not even get to meet the second prince. In this world, without money, one cannot advance an inch. Deprived of wealth, even Su Qingning, residing in the outer courtyard, could not reap any benefits. Finally, after the second prince delegated yet another significant task to someone else, Xia Yingxian began to contemplate how to seize the stewardship of the Dou family from my grasp. A confidant I had placed beside him returned to inform me that Xia Yingxian and Su Qingning had conspired throughout the night, ultimately deciding to drug me, rendering me helpless in bed, and wait until Xia Yingxue came of age to inherit everything from the Dou family, at which point they would administer a lethal poison to dispose of me. Such petty tricks dared to be executed before me. However, they did serve as a valuable reminder. To safeguard the Dou family's legacy, I found myself reluctantly compelled to spare Xia Yingshuan's life for the time being. In retrospect, as long as I had such a person around, it sufficed. I need not require him to be wholly intact. After discerning what poison Xia Yingxian and Su Qingning intended to use against me, I arranged for a counteraction under the cover of night, preemptively administering poison to him before he could act. Within 3 days, Xia Yingxian lay in bed, his mouth askew and his face distorted, resembling a stroke victim, and even several physicians who visited could not discern the nature of his ailment. To prevent this family from further complications that might jeopardize my grand designs, I resolved to take decisive action and deal with the malevolent forces arrayed before me. Xia Yingxian remained bedridden for half a month, consuming countless medicinal concoctions. Yet his condition showed no signs of improvement, much to the distress of Su Qingning, who had been residing in the outer courtyard. After all, Su Qingning, in name only a cousin, relied on the monthly stipend from the public coffers, and her lavish lifestyle had been sustained by Xia Yingshuan's support. With him incapacitated, her finances dwindled, and her anxiety mounted. In her agitation, she cast aside any pretense of caution and stormed into our inner courtyard, accompanied by a renowned healer she had summoned from outside the city. I instructed my servants to allow her entry. The outcome would be the same regardless. As the situation reached a boiling point, I hastily left the city to summon Master Suqing, who was traveling in Qingzhou. Master Suqing not only possessed profound Buddhist knowledge, but was also a masterful physician. Years ago, when His Majesty fell from his horse and remained unconscious for 3 days, it was Master Suqing who, with a single needle, restored him to health. Unbeknownst to Xia Yingxian, my father had once rendered a favor to Master Suqing, making it effortless for me to request his assistance. I was gone for 3 days, during which Su Qingning clung to Xia Yingxian, seemingly oblivious to anyone else's presence, extracting a considerable amount of personal wealth from him. Upon my return, travel-worn and weary, I was met with a barrage of scorn from her. Your cousin is gravely ill. Yet you, as his wife, have not been by his side to offer care. Where have you been all this time? Surely, you must have been avoiding the burden of tending to a sick man. During my absence, Xia Yingxian had already harbored some grievances against me, and Su Qingning's words only deepened his cold demeanor toward me. My maidservant immediately interjected to defend me. Cousin, you misunderstand Our Lady. Upon hearing that Master Suqing was in Qingzhou, she rushed to pay her respects and knelt before him for 3 days, which ultimately moved the master to come and attend to our Lord's ailment. In truth, I had been preoccupied with escorting silver to the capital for the third prince, but this explanation conveniently clarified my whereabouts. The name of Master Suqing was well known, and upon hearing that there was hope for his recovery, Xia Yingshuan's countenance brightened, accompanied by a tinge of guilt as he observed my travel-worn appearance. Only Su Qingning turned her face away, muttering under her breath, "What a charlatan of a master! Surely he is merely a fraud seeking to profit from this situation." Xia Yingxian, concerned for his own health, dismissed Su Qingning's remarks and quickly sent for Master Suqing. Master Suqing took a brief pulse before diagnosing the ailment and prescribing the necessary remedies. This affliction stems from an evil spirit, and while the medicine is secondary, to dispel it, the blood of a close relative is required as a catalyst. I immediately chimed in. A close relative? My daughter Ingxue is indeed your husband's closest kin. Her blood would serve perfectly as the catalyst. No sooner had I spoken than Su Qingning erupted in protest. Ingxue is far too young. How can you use her blood as a catalyst? What if she is harmed? How will you take responsibility? Master Suqing hastily waved his hand. It is of no consequence. Only a single drop of blood is needed. I echoed his sentiments. Indeed, Qingning, merely a drop. I trust Ingxue would willingly offer her blood to ease her father's troubles. Yet, Su Qingning remained dissatisfied. It is easy for you to say. You did not bear her. So, how could you possibly care? Xia Yingxuan's face darkened immediately. Qingning, what nonsense are you speaking? Ingxue is, of course, my wife's child. She cares for her deeply. Realizing her misstep upon hearing Xia Yingxuan's admonishment, Su Qingning quickly altered her demeanor. Sister-in-law, please forgive me. Qingning speaks out of concern for her niece, which is why she misspoke. I offered a faint smile, indicating I bore no ill will. Aware of her faux pas, Su Qingning refrained from further comment. In truth, Xia Yingxian was far more concerned about his own life than that of our daughter, and thus the decision to use Xia Yingxue's blood for the remedy was solidified. The necessary ingredients for the remedy were soon gathered, with the only remaining component being a drop of Xia Yingxue's blood. On the day of the blood extraction, Xiuhe and Zhaodi watched anxiously from the sidelines. As for Su Qingning, her discontent with the bloodletting escalated, and in her frustration, she kicked over Zhaodi, who bore a disfigured appearance. Xiuhe dared not speak out and retreated with the sobbing Zhaodi. After taking the medicine for a considerable time, Xia Yingxian, filled with hope for his recovery, waited in vain for the remedy to take effect. The light in his eyes gradually dimmed, and resentment began to creep into his gaze directed at me. With the remedy failing to yield results, Su Qingning was relentless. You, Do Qinghe, I have long perceived that your intentions toward my cousin were insincere. You married him merely to vie for the family fortune. Now that you have it, you wish to deliberately harm him to secure your own happiness. And to enlist a quack for such a vital task, you had him extract blood for the remedy. Yet your cousin remains unhealed. Do you not intend to harm him deliberately? Master Suqing disregarded Su Qingning's tirade, taking Xia Yingxuan's wrist for another pulse check. This cannot be right. The medicinal ingredients are sound. Therefore, the issue must lie with the catalyst, which must be from a close relative. Unless Miss Ingxue is not truly the daughter of Master Xia. Hearing Master Suqing's words, Xiuhe broke into a cold sweat, while Su Qingning's fury reached its peak. What nonsense are you spouting? I know whether this child is my cousin's offspring. She is indeed. Seeing Xia Yingxian signaling to her, the enraged Su Qingning finally calmed down. What I mean is, I was present in the mansion on the day of her birth. This child is certainly my cousin's. Master Suqing clasped his hands together. Amitabha, a monk does not speak falsehoods. The remedy is undoubtedly sound. If Master Xia has taken the medicine and yet shows no improvement, then it must be the catalyst that is flawed. To ascertain whether Miss Ingxue is truly Master Xia's daughter, a blood test will suffice. As Ingxue grows, her features increasingly diverge from Xia Yingxuan's, and she bears no resemblance to Su Qingning whatsoever, which has long raised Xia Yingxuan's suspicions. Moreover, since it involves him and Ingxue, should he be her father, this test could be conducted without my knowledge. To alleviate his doubts, Xia Yingxian consented to the procedure, undeterred by Su Qingning's furious glare. The blood test was straightforward. The blood of both parties would be placed in a bowl filled with water, and if the blood mingled, they were kin. If not, they were not biologically related. The maidservants quickly prepared the necessary items for the test. Xia Yingxue first dripped a drop of blood into the bowl, and after a moment's hesitation, Xia Yingxian glanced at me, and then at Su Qingning, ultimately steeling his resolve to prick his finger and let a drop of his blood fall into the bowl. Upon seeing Xia Yingxuan's blood added, Su Qingning began to weep softly in frustration, while Xiuhe nearly fainted from fear. However, after waiting a brief moment, the 2 drops of blood did not merge at all. This left Su Qingning utterly dumbfounded, and before she could react, I immediately fell to my knees, crying out, "My lord, you must believe in my unwavering loyalty. How could Ingxue possibly not be your daughter? I refuse to accept it." Under the cover of the crowd's distraction, I swiftly pierced my own fingertip. allowing a single drop of blood to mingle with the water. However, after a brief moment of anticipation, my blood failed to blend. How could this be? It dawned upon me that Ingxue was not my daughter. I was left in anguish, questioning the whereabouts of my child. My desperate cries prompted Xia Xian to stare blankly at Su Qingning, his face etched with skepticism. Observing the expression on Xia Xian's face, Su Qingning was gripped by an inner turmoil, yet she feigned composure, abruptly overturning the bowl of water. This method of blood testing must surely be a ruse. Prepare another bowl of water and hand me the blood testing needle. My blood cannot possibly mingle with Ingxue's. I eagerly awaited her pronouncement and promptly passed the needle to Su Qingning, seizing the opportunity to discreetly scratch the newly fetched water with my finger dusted with alum. Su Qingning pretended to maintain her calm as she took the blood testing needle, though her composure was shattered. If my blood too failed to merge, it would expose the lies of this bald monk. She dropped a drop of her blood into the bowl and coaxed Ingxue to do the same. Alas! As soon as their bloods met, they fused seamlessly. Su Qingning recoiled in terror, while Xia Yingxuan's gaze at her was filled with a chilling silence. How could this be? Ingxue, she cousin. How could this happen? I lunged at Su Qingning, exclaiming, I have treated you well.
What have you done with my child?
I have long heard the servants discussing how Ingxue bears no resemblance to my husband and me, but I dismissed it, never imagining she truly is not my child. I signaled to a nearby maid, who immediately knelt and spoke. Madam, I must confess something I have refrained from sharing until now. Miss Ingxue's appearance bears a striking resemblance to a young servant named Hu Lu in the courtyard of the cousin's estate. In the past, I feared such words would tarnish the ears of the madam, yet under these circumstances, I could no longer remain silent. Hu Lu was indeed Xiuhua's husband, and it was entirely natural for Xia Yingxue to resemble him, as he had been placed within Su Qingning's courtyard for this very purpose. Before I could utter another word, Xia Yingxian commanded his servants to summon Hu Lu. Upon his entrance, it became clear to all present that Hu Lu's appearance was strikingly identical to that of Xia Yingxue. Hu Lu, believing he had come into some good fortune and eagerly awaiting a reward, was bewildered when commanded to provide a drop of blood. Yet, under his master's orders, he complied without hesitation, and the outcome was inevitable. As father and daughter, their blood would surely blend. I held the bowl aloft for Xia Yingxian to see, and upon witnessing the mingling of the 2 drops of blood, he furiously overturned the bowl, while Su Qingning fell to her knees at Xia Yingxuan's feet. Cousin, believe me, this child is yours. You must trust me. Xia Yingxian grasped Su Qingning's face, his eyes devoid of the tenderness they once held. Blood that mingles signifies kinship. This child is born of you and Hu Lu. How could you possibly attribute her to me? Cousin, you know best whether this is truly yours. Silence. Xia Yingxuan's hand struck Su Qingning's face with such force that it severed her tongue. The cousin's selfish deception has led to the demise of my true daughter. Seize her, along with her paramour Hu Lu and their illegitimate child, and deliver them to the county office. While Su Qingning continued to feebly plead her innocence, Xia Yingxian disregarded her, turning instead to comfort me with feigned concern. Do not worry, my dear. It is my blindness that has allowed these scoundrels to harm our child. I will surely uncover the whereabouts of our offspring. After a prolonged silence, Su Qingming finally spoke. Forgive my bluntness, but during the pulse diagnosis, I discovered that Master Xia has been afflicted with a poison for many years. This poison, while not harmful to the body, renders a man incapable of siring children. Xia Yingxian turned pale, collapsing onto the bed. Just as the servants returned from searching Su Qingning's quarters, bringing back remnants of the poison I had concealed there long ago. Upon inspection by Su Qingming, it was confirmed that this poison had rendered Xia Yingxian childless. Su Qingning continued to shake her head in protest, but Xia Yingxuan's gaze had turned lethal. Poisonous woman. Hurry and send her to the magistrate. I demand severe punishment to reveal the whereabouts of my child. The servants promptly escorted Su Qingning and her accomplices to the magistrate's office, but my child had long since perished, and thus no answers could be extracted. That night, news reached the county office that Su Qingning and the others had perished in their cells, meeting a gruesome end, having been stabbed multiple times, a mark of Xia Yingxuan's vengeance. Following this incident, Xiuhua dared not remain in the Dou household and sought my permission to leave, which I granted. Little did I know that she would be ambushed and murdered on her way, her fate mirroring that of Su Qingning and her companions, another act orchestrated by Xia Yingxian. Alas, the whereabouts of that child, Zhao, remained unknown. I had not anticipated that, even in his bedridden state, Xia Yingxian could orchestrate such schemes. That night, I ordered an increase in his medication dosage. Consequently, Xia Yingxian was rendered entirely incapacitated, lying in bed, unable to utter a single word. I had silenced the household, ensuring that this affair did not spread. After successfully aiding the third prince in several significant matters, the noble consort finally sent word, requesting an audience with me. I recognized this as a signal of my impending elevation in status and hastily prepared to journey to the capital. The majesty of the Forbidden City was beyond my imagination. I disguised myself as a relative of the noble consort and accompanied the eunuchs to her palace. Indeed, the noble consort was as magnificent as her title suggested, possessing a beauty tinged with an air of authority, capable of nurturing a person of such caliber as the third prince. She expressed surprise upon meeting me. "Your capability in handling affairs is so mature. I had presumed you were much older, yet you are but a young maiden under 20. Indeed, upon reflection, I have barely reached the age of 19, but considering both my past and present lives, I could be considered an aged matron." The intrigue surrounding the succession was rife with undercurrents, and for a girl to involve herself in such matters must surely indicate undisclosed motives. "Speak freely. Once your goals are achieved, what do you desire so that I may entrust you with my confidence?" At long last, the moment had arrived. I promptly bowed thrice before the noble consort with utmost sincerity. "Your Grace, though I am but a woman of humble birth, my capabilities rival those of men.
Yet,
Due to my gender, I must seek a marriage to preserve my family's legacy. This is a common occurrence, as women cannot establish households. Thus, I beseech your Grace, once my endeavors bear fruit, to issue an edict allowing all women to establish households, enabling them to safeguard their legacies without the need for marriage." The noble consort was taken aback by my request, yet her expression swiftly transformed to one of understanding. "Your request is commendable, I shall grant it. Focus on serving me and the third prince." Having received the noble consort's assurance, I was overwhelmed with emotion and bowed to her thrice, once more. I then disclosed certain events from my past life to her and urged her to remain vigilant regarding the eunuch who had been bribed by the second prince to get close to the emperor. A decade swiftly passed, and the second prince, unable to suppress the third prince any longer, resorted to rebellion. Anticipating the second prince's treachery, the third prince swiftly apprehended him, subsequently being named crown prince. Years later, upon the emperor's passing, the third prince ascended the throne and honored the noble consort as Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager, true to her promise, issued an edict allowing all women to establish households, alleviating my fears of having my family's estate divided amongst relatives. To reward my contributions, the Empress Dowager conferred upon me the title of Lady of the State. I held a fondness for children, but alas, due to Xia Yingxian, I would remain childless in this life. After settling this matter, I requested the Empress Dowager's permission to use the Dou family's resources to establish charitable homes in the capital, providing shelter for the homeless children. One day, while I was engrossed in organizing the accounts, a servant entered to inform me that a young woman had come to claim kinship, declaring herself to be my daughter. I have no children. My only offspring perished at the hands of Xia Yingxian. Yet, that woman insists she is my daughter, and out of curiosity, I stepped outside for a moment. Just a single glance was enough for me to recognize her as the long-lost Zhao Di. Nearly 16 years have elapsed, and while the scars on her face have faded somewhat, the resemblance between her brows and eyes and Xia Yingxian is striking. Upon seeing me, Zhao Di rushed forward in tears, exclaiming, "Mother, I am your daughter. I have missed you so dearly. Do you know how much I have suffered all these years?" Her eyes brimmed with tears, but I remained unmoved, instead prying her fingers apart one by one. "Stop pretending, Xia Yingxue. You have returned as well, haven to you?" This incarnation of Zhao Di could not possibly know her connection to the Dou family. How could she dare claim to be my daughter? Noticing my calm demeanor, Xia Yingxue ceased her weeping. "So, mother has returned. That is truly wonderful. You have no idea how much torment I have endured over the years. You cared for me so tenderly. Please acknowledge me as your daughter. Xiang Xue, is it not enough that you caused my demise? You dare come seeking recognition? Truly, you fear nothing. Xiang Xue blinked innocently, replying, Mother, you died of illness. What does that have to do with your daughter? Besides, even if I am not your biological child, you raised me for so many years. Surely there must be some bond. After all, your real child has perished, and I would be a fitting substitute for you and father in your old age. I have heard you know of some master of purification. Perhaps he could remedy the scars on my face. The new emperor is currently selecting consorts. Who knows if my appearance improves? I might even enter the palace as a queen. This child is truly insufferable. In my fury, I laughed bitterly. Did you not claim you would support father in his old age?
Come follow me.
Xiang Xue, bewildered, accompanied me to the back courtyard, where Xiang Xian has been relegated. I ensured that he would endure the same torments I once faced. Several times, when he could bear it no longer, I had my servants administer him medicine to prolong his suffering. He must truly taste the bitterness of this world. Upon seeing that wretched creature huddled in the corner, Xiang Xue was so frightened that she instinctively recoiled, but I gripped her hand tightly and flung her inside. You wish to honor your father. Well, there he is. Go. Fulfill your filial duty. Xiang Xue frantically waved her hands and attempted to retreat, but I blocked her path. Not so fast. You still wish to enter the palace. Yet in your previous life, you were with the second prince. He conspired against the throne, and the new emperor, merciful yet unwilling to execute his brother, imprisoned him in a desolate fortress. You, a wife once, might as well accompany him. Do not forget to bring your father along, for you must care for him as well. Xiang Xue knelt in tears, pleading, I was wrong, mother. If I go to that bitter place, I will surely have no chance of survival. Her cries did not sway me in the slightest. I gestured for my servants to escort Xiang Xue and Xiang Xian to the border, never looking back. I have many matters to attend to. These unworthy individuals and trivial affairs do not merit my gaze. The end of the tale. Thank you for listening. Until we meet again in the next story.